I had been meaning to address this for a while, so allow me to give it my best. LOL. Moving on. Today we're going to talk about the story of Shamima Begum, a rather interesting story of love, betrayal, desperation, and then begging to come back to the UK, telling a sob story and showing zero remorse. Now I have covered aspects of this over on the Cthulhu-Kin and Friend show, where on Thursday, during my weekly political recap stream with Trups, my co-host Trups, subscribe to him, link below, we discussed what happened with Shamima Begum and the two friends she went with. We talked about how they managed to get out of the country, which is something we should definitely talk about now again, because one of them was 15, so how they managed to get to Turkey and then to Raqqa is of great interest to me. Tells me planning was definitely a key part of this. We also discussed the fact that those girls then married people who were fighting in the name of ISIS, the caliphate in Raqqa. They were living a normal life where it was commonplace to see a severed head in a bin, which was fine because they were the enemy. We also discussed the fact that all of them had children. One of them is now dead, the person, and with some of the children actually, because unfortunately in their Muslim utopia, they didn't have access to the necessary medicine or adequate food, so children died of disease and malnourishment. Both of Shamima Begum's children to date, in fact, died from that, although she has had a third child, and we will discuss that again soon enough. We did in fact discuss this on that stream, but since that stream, more has come out, so I want to give a recap of what happened, and then what has happened since last Thursday, as I think it's a fantastic story and raises many questions that has divided this country significantly on the subject of whether or not people who leave the country to go and fight for terrorist organizations or be involved in relationships with terrorist organizations and people who fight in the name of that terrorist organization should be allowed back. And if they are allowed back, should they be subject to de-radicalization programs or possible charges? With these girls in particular, Shamima Begum and the other two, I can only remember one of them, and that's only because her last name is Sultana and she's dead. They were all quite young, and that is an argument used by a number of people defending them, most notably their families. Although I believe one of the families, the father was involved in flag burning behind a very interesting looking black flag that reminds me of the meme Jihad Now flag that Sargon was selling. I wonder why that rings a bell. While saying his daughter is innocent and, totes regretful, he himself has shown a more extremist attitude. So whether or not I want to take his word about his daughter's kindness, gentle nature, and desire to come home and be a part of the UK again, or just Bethnal Green more notably, is debatable. I personally am not convinced he's the right person with just enough integrity for me to trust him. So to recap their story, the three girls that left the country, they left about 4 years ago. They got onto a plane, no issues. I have no idea how, but somehow they did, and they were able to be in Turkey by the end of the day, where they then managed to cross the border into Raqqa, or many borders. My geography is not very strong. Within a week, they had been given the husbands they so richly wanted, at the ages of 15 and 16, because that's what you need, and they went about their normal daily lives for the next 4 years, in the middle of a freaking war zone, while adoring their caliphate. Naturally, as the years went by and ISIS was summarily, destroyed from Raqqa, their opinions started to change. One of the friends was killed in an airstrike, and they ended up retreating to another area, by which time we get to the present day, where both girls now desire to come home. Shamima Begum is the more noted one, because she was the poster girl for ISIS. She was the poster girl for all of this. Also, the fact is she's also given a number of interviews, and in these interviews she has said things that, really get the noggin jogging. For example, she justified the Manchester attacks by saying, well, there was a Syrian airstrike.
I think to kill a soldier that is fighting you, it's self-defense, but to kill people like women and children, just like people, like the women and children in Baghuz that are being killed right now, unjustly by the bombings. It's a two-way thing, really. because women and children are being killed back in the Islamic State right now. And it's kind of retaliation. Like, their justification was that it was retaliation, so I thought, okay, that is a fair justification.
Now, I'll agree, the airstrike in Syria, heinous. But saying that eye for an eye is a valid argumentation, or saying it's a good thing, no. Now, you want to come back, Shamima does. You want to come back to the United Kingdom to raise your child, your third child, the only living one, in peace. Well, people went to the community in Bethnal Green, and the majority said no.
I think looking at the position that she's been put in at the moment, I think realising probably that it's not safe for her, and again for the child, if she wants to come back, she should be allowed to come back. I think we all make choices, we all can sometimes make bad choices as well in life, but that's my opinion. I think she should be allowed to come back.
I feel sympathy for her situation, but if she is a terrorist, then I wouldn't want her here.
I've made choices I've regretted, but obviously not to that degree. My choices are very small compared to hers.
I will be going through a lot, but honestly, I don't think the UK should allow her to get back here. Like, she made a decision when she went to Syria, so I don't think she should be allowed, despite all the things that she's going through.
They don't want you back. This, in fact, was covered on my political recap stream with Trups, and we both agreed that there's a huge argument to be made for her not being allowed to come back. However, under international law, no individual person can be stateless. So unless Shamima Begum is given Syrian citizenship, which I don't think they would want to give her, understandably so, she has to remain a British citizen, which is unfortunate for us because it means that she can in fact come home. The Foreign Office and Security Services are assessing whether or not she's a risk, and if she does come back, it is likely she will have to go through a de-radicalization program. She also might face charges for her involvement with ISIS. That, of course, would involve a rather lengthy investigation into her activities, because it's all well and good her saying, I was just a wife to a Dutch guy who also fled his country to go and fight for ISIS. But you still went there. You still were involved in that. And it would take an investigation to confirm whether or not you were involved in anything that could be punishable in this country. Because in my mind, if an investigation proves you have done something you should not have done in Syria, then yeah, you should face charges there. Maybe they'll use one of their beautiful chlorine bombs on you. Do I need my sarcasm sign for that? I'm going to put my sarcasm sign up. I am, of course, joking, because it wouldn't fucking work. Anyway, Shamima Begum has given a number of interviews. As I earlier stated, she defended the Manchester bombings. She actually has defended ISIS and doesn't feel any guilt for her being there or going there or being involved in it. She has shown zero remorse for her decision to leave and do all of that. And the defense, the lawyer for them, is doing everything he can to portray both the girls as victims of this crime, in the sense that they were young and easily manipulated. But as they have shown zero remorse, I don't believe that it holds much stock, because for them to be a victim, they would have to understand that what they did was wrong and show guilt for it. They're not showing guilt. Naturally, because the lawyer is doing everything he can to defend the girls, he is being character assassinated for some of his involvements in other rather heinous things. Not the greatest of lawyers when his integrity is worse than the father who was involved in flag burning. And the subject of flag burnings is up for debate with other people because quite frankly I don't care enough. Unless it's my flag, in which case you're going to hell. Cthulhu hell. It's a little different. It's very moist. To go back to the story of what happened that got Shamima to this point, when Raqqa was overtaken, they fled. Her husband was actually arrested. She is now in a Syrian refugee camp further north, and it was in this camp that she gave birth to her third child, a son that she has named Jarrah, a name derived from a 7th century Islamic warlord. Much noble, I know. During interviews, she was asked about the atrocities committed by ISIS. She deflected this in a rather interesting twist to bombings of jihadis. I am going to play video clips so you can best understand that this girl is showing no remorse for what she's done, a point that I have made many times, she is shrugging off the murders of British terror victims. She, to many people, is not worthy of being British.
Did you know what Islamic State were doing when you left for Syria? Because they had beheaded people, there were executions.
Yeah, I knew about those things, and I was okay with it.
In the sense that we have a very good system here, a very fair system that protects a lot of people, her community especially, and her being allowed back here might do harm to social cohesion. Let's call it that. That is a term I've heard many times before as an excuse to detain certain people. The lawyer, who I earlier mentioned having been involved in a number of rather interesting incidents while being character assassinated by the media, has compared the youngster to a traumatized First World War soldier who is essentially in the middle of shell shock. Earlier I mentioned that she once saw a severed head in a bin and she was fine with it. Am I the only person now thinking that perhaps this is absolute claptrap? To finish this whole saga off concerning Shamima Begum, I thought it would be a good idea to give my opinion on whether or not she should be allowed back into this country.
I think a lot of people should have sympathy towards me for everything I've been through, you know.
In short, no. I believe she should be detained somewhere else, perhaps Azkaban. I believe the child that she had should be allowed back into the country. The child retains citizenship or dual citizenship, and therefore should be allowed to come here, because the child has nothing to do with this. If the family of the daughter that is there, Shamima that is, her family, are assessed as unworthy, then put the child into another loving home. There are plenty of people who want to adopt. Perhaps give that child the chance it won't have with this mother wearing that ridiculous headgear. Much freedom.
What was it about Islamic State that attracted you?
The way they showed how you can go, they'll take care of you, you can have your own family there, you can do anything. You're living under Islamic law.
If she is allowed back into the country, which is a decision I have no influence over, then I would hope she is either charged for involvement in ISIS, if they can get enough evidence to confirm any involvement past her simply going to Raqqa for husband and utopia. Sorry, Muslim utopia, which means literally women surrender for the, profit. It doesn't sound like much of a utopia to me, but each to their own. If she is allowed back into the country and no charges are laid at her feet, then she should be put through a de-radicalization program, the end of which I would like to see her openly, on one of the interviews she's been doing on TV, denounce ISIS. I want to see that, instead of these excuses she has given, all of which are utter bollocks. Anyway, I hope you'll have a lovely Tuesday, and thank you all for listening.